and Eddy Charles, founder of MJM Productions and Charlet Dubbing, based in France and Guadeloupe, n'est-ce pas?
Haiti.
Haiti, it's a mistake. Oh, France and Haiti, there we go. Thank you for joining us today. So, let's have a quick introduction from each of you. I'll start with Enrico. You've got a mic just there, and tell us a bit about what you do. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Enrico. I spent 2.5 decades as business lawyer in corporate finance, emerging markets, and decided 2019 to dedicate my time to entertainment and specifically to financing entertainment. So we set up a company in Switzerland, which is called EF Advisory, and we do advising both entertainment companies and financial institutions when it comes to bridging the gap, as we say. And we have a film financing division called FinFilm, which is we finance with a fully regulated financial entity in Mauritius, and we finance both bridge and gap to independent productions.
Thank you. And Yolanda?
My name is Yolanda Ncokotwana. I currently work as a head of industry development at the National Film and Video Foundation. I started my television career in broadcasting, and then I moved on to independent productions. So at the National Video and Foundation we fund productions from development, production, all the way to post-production. Really, our role is to support the South African film industry in creating stories, but also bringing about the balances and making sure that there's inclusion and diversity within the creators of the South African productions and content.
Thank you. And Eddy?
Hello, everyone. My name is Eddy Charles. I have 2 post-production companies in Paris. We work with distributors, filmmakers, broadcasters, include streamers. We do 16% of our business in Africa, and the rest of my business in between France, Europe, South America, and US. That's why I'm very happy to be here today. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So talking about tapping into creating African productions, why do you think there is this boom happening right now? Any of you? Yolanda.
I think Africa has a lot of stories, right? And I think we've got a lot of untapped stories. I think we are culturally very unique. We also have a young generation that is curious. I think, yes, we are met with issues of infrastructure, but I think in terms of wanting to tell our story, the world has to be interested, because I think all the stories that we've consumed from the West have now become the same, or at least a lot of African are exposed to American content, which there's a lot of remakes nowadays rather than original content. So, of course, there will be an interest in Africa in terms of creating new stories that are authentic and culturally diverse. So I think Africa really offers that in every shape and form. I think we're also reflecting who we are in our stories, but also reflecting who we wish to be, and also being able to tell our own stories in our own POV. And I think that's why there's an interest.
Thank you. Do you want to add anything, Eddy?
About the growth in Africa?
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's the same as Yolanda. Africa is a very vast. You have different ethnies, different country. It's very rich, the culture. Sorry, my English is not very well, but that's right.
No, it's perfect.
Okay. And I think each people in Africa has a story to tell. Yes, it's the same.
Okay.
Sorry.
Did you want to add anything to that, Enrico?
Yes, for sure. We have set up a production company in Mauritius 2 years ago, Hero Entertainment. And the idea was exactly to go to Africa, to source African content, and to bring this to the world market. And our aim is to produce locally with local cast and crew, and to have the post-production done in Europe or the US in order to have a product which fits the world market. We see that there is a huge appetite for African storytelling, for content, and there are many stories to be told which can fit the appetite of the world market. And our reason to go, we set it up in Mauritius because we think it's a strategic place from where we can run the productions. We have a current production in Zambia, and we have 2 upcoming in Mauritius. And we feel that this is exactly what can be nowadays sold to the world market if, and this is a big if, the finishing of the product is done with the view to also satisfy the expectation of European and US audiences. And we also have seen that what has been happening in the US over the last, let's say, 10 years, the Black Matters movement, a certain cultural identity, a proudness which came back, has given much more appetite of content coming out of Africa.
Thank you. Going back to EF Advisory, what do producers need to come to you with what do you expect them to come to you with, criteria for advice on financing their projects?
Right. We have, like I said, we have in EF Advisory Group, we have 2 entities. The one is the production entity, which is Hero Entertainment, where we step in also in a very early stage, partnering with local producers, developing and bringing into production the movie. And there we have to love the content. When it comes to pure financing, which we do in our financing division under the FinFilm, there basically we would expect that the producer comes with a finance plan which needs only us to fill the gap, so that all the other elements of the finance plan have already been put in place and we are the last one to come in. In addition, we would expect that there are world sales attached, and the producer knows that when he talks to us, it's not, as a financier, it's not about falling in love with the project, but to understand how he thinks we are going to recoup our money. So we must be comfortable with his understanding of the market and where his product can go, and then I think we can finance it.
So the plan essentially needs to demonstrate how you're going to get that money back. That's the big thing, more so than, the love of the story, the passion of the project.
Yeah. We so often get, when we have the first contact, producers come to us and tell us how beautiful the project is and what a warm and soulful story they want to tell. And I say to them, well, listen, I don't want to be cynical, but if you don't love your project, I don't think you wouldn't do it. I need to be cynical to understand the numbers and not the project. And therefore, we do gap. And on gap, we would request that we have unsold territories estimated 3 times the gap which is requested. And this is the basic rule. And once this is fulfilled, our process is very streamlined. We can greenlight a process within 3 or 4 weeks if all the documents are in place. And then we would normally cash flow our part on an escrow account, which should be managed by a completion bond or at least overseen by a third party. And that's it.
Thank you. Yolanda, can you tell us what the role is of the National Film and Video Foundation in terms of getting projects off the ground and getting them greenlit and into production?
Well, we primarily work with independent producers. So I think the biggest thing that we look at is story. We look at, is it possible for you to fund the story? But I think over the past 3 years, we've also tried to almost break in half what we expect from stories, because I think as much as there is artistic films that we need to create, there's also an understanding, and now with the streamers, that they want their money back. But we still produce with independent producers that want to make artistic films that will go into festivals. So what we've done is we split our funding. Yes, there are projects that are purely for commercial reasons, but I think it's also a lot of the projects that we make, if we're being honest, don't always yield the results that we want. We don't always break even. We wish we did. So we then concentrate on artistic merits of the project. Our processes are very simple. If you want to work with a South African, because our funding comes from government, we're given money by the government. So it's taxpayers' money that requires then one, if you're not South African, to partner with a South African producer, because then that's how you get the funding, whether it be development or production. We have calls throughout the year. And I think also over and above that, we also, of course, with our sister company, the GTI, have the tax incentives and the tax breaks, which foreign productions do qualify for. But I think from our side, it's really looking at artistic directors and artistic producers and looking at their story and the likelihood of it making it to festivals and really changing the discourse of our country if it's a documentary.
So would you say if it's a documentary, part of the criteria for it going into development with you is that it's going to be have a positive impact?
Not necessarily. Again, it depends on why you are making your documentary. I think it's about telling the truth. I think a couple of years ago we made a documentary with a guy, Rihad Desai, which was basically confronting the government and confronting the ills that had happened to the miners. That doesn't necessarily mean that government was in support of it, but however, it was a true story that happened in South Africa that needed justice in a form of a film. So we don't necessarily sensitize our content to say that it must be positive. I think as long as you have found the audiences for the project that you're trying to create, we try and not censor what kind of stories that our filmmakers make. So you can come with any film, whether it be commercial or very artistic. But I think what we require is the clarity from the producer, is to be able to know that if you're saying it's an artistic film, these are the channels that you're going to take it through. This is the distribution plan that you have for it. And therefore we can see the likelihood of it succeeding in that stream that you are taking. And if it's a commercial film, then you have to show us the numbers and really show that you have done comparators. So whether you're going artistic or you're going commercial, it's just about the producer having the confidence and proving to us that they can actually follow that stream that they want to follow, and successfully so.
Thank you. On the same topic, similar question to Enrico. Is there a sort of specific type of content that you're looking for more so at the moment, or getting more involved with? Is there a trend?
Well, like I said before, when we look to a project, when it comes down to financing it, so not producing, pure financing it, we look to the numbers. So we do not have any specific requirement as far as the genre is requested. But on the other side, the market defines what genre can be sold. So as we request that there's a world market for GAP to be landed, as GAP is going to be landed against unsold territories, we have to see in the sales estimate that there is a market where the product can be sold. And this is what we can see today, family entertainment. So whatever is suitable for family entertainment, then what we can see are compelling stories with a social, ethical background. They do very well. Biopics with musical background do extremely well. This is what we have on our table right now, and what I can see is a little bit the focus right now.
Thank you. Eddy, I know that you've done some co-productions, European co-productions with the MJM. Am I right? So can you tell us some highlights of
Yes,
those?
I have two highlights with MGM and Charlie Production. The first, it was Aloe Vera movie. It's from, the producer was from Ghana. It was a fantastic movie, wonderful, good music, artistic movie. We made all sound design. We made French dubbing for Canal Plus International also. And my second, it was Jojo's Story. It's the first co-production between France and Nigeria. It was spiritualism movie and about voodoo, about urban legend. I'm very proud about two movies. Yes.
Nice. Do you want to tell us some highlights of co-productions as well that you've been involved in?
I think Brazil touched earlier on today, or Louis touched on the collaboration that we've done just last year. I think Brazil was basically our first South to South co-production, and that is for projects that are in development. Of course, we are still looking for the project. I think what we realized then was we're doing the productions that we need the producers to know each other and to be able to produce with each other. But as a highlight, I think that's something that we've recently collaborated on. I mean, we've had Nigeria and Kenya signing off of those co-productions, but I think they still at a point where they need to be operationalized. We are doing a few projects with Holland, which are in various stages, and we're also trying to pilot the idea of taking projects in a co-production space from development to production. But more than that, I think our biggest challenge within co-production has always been that projects that may have started off as 100% South African, once it gets to the financing, they start deteriorating to like an 80-20, with either the other country owning the majority. So what that collaboration is trying to do is to make sure that it's a 50-50 partnership and that it's true all the way to the end. And therefore, we're trying to ensure that we support the producers in putting up those projects. So I think those are some of the highlights, I suppose.
That's great. And the same to you, Enrico. Do you want to tell us some highlights of co-productions that you've had?
Well, we do not really look into co-production because what we do is we do produce. So when we are speaking with a producer and decide to going into the production, we would aim to take over the production, to keep the producer attached to it, but we would not see ourselves in a role just to co-produce. And we are currently developing 3 projects which have not yet been released. We have one in Zambia which is doing very well and is in pre-production now. It's called Luthier. It's about it's with Lawrence Thompson done. It's about forced minor weddings. And this is one of the, I think, most beautiful projects I had in my hands over some time, because it really touched something which was known but never really told in that level. And it will be a beautiful movie because it shows the story of a little girl which escapes her village, which escapes a first wedding, and she finds herself in Lusaka, in this very big town with no money, nearly raped, escaped that, and she has been saved and safeguarded by a prostitute. So what could have been her destiny becomes her destiny, but in a good way. And these prostitutes help her out of jail, helps her back to school, and helps her to finish her studies. And it's a wonderful story.
Wow, thank you. So coming back to you, Eddy, do you want to take us through some of the things you've been navigating with the co-productions in terms of working, because we've been talking about this split when it's not necessarily even. It can sometimes come with rules that are difficult to work with, etc.
Okay, interesting. For co-production, well, in my part, post Felicity, the challenge is we work with the art director in the distance, because my studio based in France. Sometimes I work with some art directors in Nigeria. For me, it's better to work with them in Paris, in the same area. The challenging is sometimes for the art directors is they don't have the budget for post production. I offer my services against equity. I do all the post production. It depends. Sorry, it depends on the movie. I prefer read the script before. That's it.
Okay, thank you. And I know that you set up a base in Benin recently.
Here in Berlin?
In Benin.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
Tell us about that and why.
In Benin, yes. First, I'm a Haitian. All Haitian in the world know Benin is our ancestor. I think for me, it's a journey back to Africa, the sentimental. And in Benin, I want to develop, I want to set up the new studio of post-production, and I want to develop the TV show first, develop the content for young adult, for teenager, because I feel at home in Benin. I have the good view. Cotonou is very, very, very nice area. So that's why I set up my first office in Africa in Benin.
Are you finding that the training is in place there, or are you training yourselves?
No, I have a partner. Partner. They live in Paris. Sometimes they're going to Benin. I have an office, the TV studio. Sorry, I have the TV studio, and I have one studio
production office.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Going to something slightly different, Enrico, I know that you've been working on another initiative, the smart contracts. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how it will change things?
Well, yes, this is. It's regarding the recoupment system, which the collection management accounts nowadays, they have been managed as it had happened for the last 30, 40, 50 years. And what we can see that the system, which is huge, is still very expensive. It goes through wire transfers, the banking system. And if you look to small or medium budgeted productions, you can see that after a certain period in time, it becomes very expensive to recoup the intervals when you can see your money coming in, receiving the reports, receiving on account. The license fees becomes longer and longer. And so what we have developed and are going to launch this springtime is a smart contract blocked on a blockchain, which basically will codify the IPA, the inter-party agreement. So once inter-party agreement with the waterfall stands, we have an interface where this can be put into the smart contract, and the smart contract will be codified, and being on blockchain, it cannot be changed anymore. It stands forever. So you don't need to legalize it. You don't, a notary public, you don't need nothing. The contract, it stands. And attached to that contract, we do have USDT wallets, which means that we don't need a banking system. We don't pay banking fees. It's all on real-time basis. So it means that when you do have, even after some time, your recoupment goes down, less money comes in, but still, even if you have a very small royalty being paid somewhere in the world, it goes in a smart contract, and on real time, you find in your wallet your amount as a right holder being credited with no fees, no delay. You need a report You just look into it and you have it on real time available with basically no additional cost to third party.
Sounds good, doesn't it? Coming to you, Yolanda, is there a specific project highlight that you want to tell us about while we have the?
No, I think I've already touched on the projects that we are doing internationally. So, I think we're also partnering on initiatives around VR. We are partnering around training, around VR. So we're partnering in training and initiatives that do VR work in the continent. We're also participating in other helping support initiatives around training of producers in the continent. Mm-hmm. And I suppose that is our way of sort of like extending what we do beyond just the limitations of money or beyond South Africa in itself. As you know, a lot of the work that we would do would be for South Africans. But I think through the training initiative, then we're able to support programs that are just not focused on South Africa, but are focused to the continent as a whole.
That's really cool. Thank you. Eddy, your other company is Chalet Dubbing. I'm really curious. I think I'm typical of a Brit when we say we watch the subtitles, but we know that it's big. Dubbing is really big in Europe and really big for you in France. Why do you think that is?
Okay, it's very funny because I prefer dub because in France a lot of people like me don't speak English very well. We prefer dub because sometimes we're doing other things when we watch a movie. I saw the English speaker prefer subtitle because they prefer keep the original version. It depends. It is a choice of distributor, but for me, I prefer dub because I prefer hear another voices because I'm doing some things. I know my friend Francis Nebo is here, so prefer subtitle. Maybe it's hard. For me, I prefer dub. And for my business is better also.
Of course. I'm just fascinated. For a question for all of you, how do you? Because I know you all have something in this. How do you encourage and nurture upcoming creatives, respectively? So, Enrico.
Well, I think creatives need to understand that there is not only one product or one type of product when it comes to movie. We have different markets and different type of movies. But if you want to move a commercial movie, you have to understand, like I said before, the market. You have to understand you're doing a product and there's a process involved, a process which needs to be done in a certain way in order to be eligible for third parties to give you the money you need to do it. If you want to do a movie which you believe artistically in, and you do not expect a commercial return, that's fine. But then from the beginning, you have to understand that this is a different product, a different way to do it. So there are two different ways. But when you choose that you want third-party funds to be invested, in a really early stage, you need to understand what you're doing and where you want to go. And if you look what today happens with the small studios, the small production companies here in Europe, they tend all now to partner in a very early stage with sales companies to understand where the markets go, to understand, is this product something for TV, for broadcasting? Is it something which goes to streamer? May it go to theatrical release? Where do I want to go with it? And even if you do this on a smaller scale, you have to understand what you do.
Thank you. And
how do you nurture young talents? I think it's about holding space. I think it's about ensuring that you are creating an environment that allows young people to be vulnerable. I think the younger generation is able to express how they feel. So we have the benefit of always knowing what they are thinking. But I think as it's also about making sure that we're not dictating or telling them how to do it. They will find a new way of doing story. And I think since we are in a, in Berlin, in a much more international market, I would say it's also about not telling them what to do, but rather asking what do they want to do. I think, of course, there's templates of what works and what doesn't. And I think when, especially at least in South Africa, when the creatives are coming up, they are not all following the norm. And I think it really is important to create a space that allows them to make the films that they feel represent them. And allow and platforms to be open enough to allow those kind of content. I mean, I think, there's the beauty of the streamers in Africa that have come up, but I think they've also fallen into what traditional television was doing, to say that this is what works for our audience. We'll only take this and this and this, which is also boxing what kind of films get made, where they're looking for either romantic comedies or action, but not really encouraging the other genres. And I don't think that's part of holding the space. I think that's part of just saying this is the path, follow it. And it really leaves us limited with the kind of content that we consume. So I would say it's about open-mindedness and really holding the space to know that different content needs to come out, a niche content needs to come up, documentaries need to come up, and also for the young people to know that, yes, the traditional media will say no, but there are other platforms.
That's great, thank you. And yourself?
Repeat the question.
Répétez la question. C'est pour comment est-ce qu'on va encourager les gens pour se dédier au film aussi.
Okay, as I explained earlier, I have some filmmakers in apparel industry against equity. In my part, I'm not the financial, I'm the service provider. I help them with co-production. That's it.
You also do training as well. Tu offres des programmes pour training, pour apprendre à faire le dubbing et tout ça, non? Post-production? C'est pas ça? Mais il y a des cours qu'on peut faire? Même pas?
Non.
C'est dans ton site de web. Okay. Anyway, do we have any questions for the panel? Oh, is that Candice? Oh my goodness. London's here.
Yeah, London's here. Good to see you. Thank you to the whole panel. Really great. Et merci aussi, Charles. C'était vraiment intéressant d'attendre qu'est-ce que tu fais en Bénin. This question actually is, just make sure I get my name right, is for Enrico. It's a triage question very quickly. First off, do you support co-productions from the diaspora? So for instance, if you have a film which is being shot across Portugal, Germany, and Cape Verde, could the producers approach you for financing? Secondly, at what stage of the financing process is it best to approach your company to fill in the gap? And thirdly, if a producer was approaching your company for financing, what's the best intro and first step to take in that approach?
Okay. Being film primarily a gap lender, we are the last one who comes in. So we would expect that the finance plan is pretty much done and just our piece is missing. We usually finance on a gap basis between 10 and 15% of the total budget. And we would expect that you would have 3 times value of the gap by unsold territories. This is what we would expect. And we do finance co-productions because our reference where we do our leverage is the sales estimates. So as long as you have a sales agent attached and we can see in the sales estimates that there are enough unsold territories or not assigned territories to the co-producers, which could give us the comfort to recoup our loan, then this is basically not a problem if it's a single production or co-production. As far to approach, if you go to on our internet site, it's finfilm.eu. There you can see all the requirements. There's a contact form. You can fill that out. You can fill in the first information on your project and you will be contacted. And normally our process is very streamlined. As we are regulated, we have an onboarding process similar to what each bank does. So we have to understand, which sometimes on co-production can be a little bit more tricky. But if you have only one borrower, then it comes again quite easy. You have to understand who is the beneficial owner of the production company. We have to identify this very simple. Once this is done, then you would get from us our first estimate on an LOI basis, what we think we can do on that project. If you agree on this, we would start a due diligence. There would be a legal fee attached. Once the due diligence is done, then you get a confirmative LOI. Once this is done, then basically we go into legal drafting and we are the last one to pay in. So we would expect that all the liquid elements of the financial plan have been provided, and then we would pay our part into escrow. And normally we would expect that a completion bond is attached to overview that the spending is in line with the cash flow plan, which has been approved. If there is no completion bond attached, which sometimes, mostly in Africa, it's difficult, then if it's a smaller production, then we can, however, go ahead, but we would need that there is some third-party professional to control the cash flow, to make sure if there is something going out of order, we know this by time. And that's it. Basically, that's it.
Any other questions for the panel? Is that at the back? Two.
Sorry. Mine is coming from a. Sorry. My name is Kirshiri. I'm a consultant for the International Trade Center, which is a kind of an agency that is set up by, which is it's in Switzerland, but it's a UN agency, which is at the moment is implementing an initiative which is trying to create an initiative between United Kingdom trade partnership with Caribbean countries. So the last few years I've been working, trying to develop that conversation between that region and the United Kingdom. And we only found out that there was only one country that has a co-production treaty with the United Kingdom, that is Jamaica. So, and when we talk about collaborating with European production and Africa, one is taken in a context which really is what Yolanda with NAVF have been exploring since democracy in 1994. And the idea is that, you cannot talk about co-production treaties apart from an individual perspective from what you're saying, Enrico. Switzerland does not have any co-production treaties with any of African territories. It's not it. When you're talking about serious business, about engaging, it has to be effective from policy level rather than individual experiences, if you like. So I'm very interested with what Yolanda was about to say. I think that is quite important. South Africa has had, since its democracy, the only country in the whole of the continent that has got multiple co-production treaties with Europe. And most of them are not particularly that they're one way benefiting Europe more than Africa. It's not what it is all about. So what we should be exploring is to seriously try to address this paucity between Europe and Africa. Considering Nigeria has got almost a population of 250 million people, and it's got huge kind of, in terms of production. But I don't think there has never been any very serious engagement within that country and all these kind of European countries that we're talking about. So if we're talking about collaborating Europe production and Africa, it has to be serious conversation rather than kind of individual experiences. That's my point.
Should I answer?
Any answer to that?
Let me very quickly address this. I'm not sure if I understood the question behind, but I may want, however, to comment this with two aspects. The one thing is that I do not believe that you always need policies to make things happen. But we can see that you can have co-production being put in place even if there is no co-production treaty existing between that countries. Co-production treaties do help, but they are not necessary to make co-production, so they can also be done without it. And we've seen this, and we are financing it, and they work. Is the one thing. On the other thing, where I think this is a good point raised, is what need to be done that a real partnership between European production and African production can occur. And what we have seen is that sometimes when you start to produce in Africa, there is not the infrastructure and not the environment which you would expect to find beside some very specific territories or places, which like South Africa also. And so what I think needs to be done, and this is not only on a co-production treaty level, which is necessary, it's also that when you look to the development in the single territories, it is not about putting cash rebate systems or tax rebate system in place. This is only one piece. You have to create a habitat which starts from education, which starts from creating an infrastructure to help young filmmakers to gain access to hardware, gaining access to expertise. You need to create a local film industry. And this cannot only be done with money, which comes out of tax or cash rebate schemes. It needs to be done creating a habitat. And on this, I think this is right what you're saying.
I think we have to close. But we can continue the conversation at the after party. I will say that again, yanib.com/Afro Berlin. I would like to thank you all today. I really enjoyed hearing from all of you, Enrico, Yolanda, and Eddy. Thank you so much.